In today's video, I'm going to be making a sheath for this Schrade Welding fixed blade knife, so stay tuned. Hello everybody, and thanks for joining me for another video. This is Dave, and I'm glad you're with me. Today I'm going to be making a leather sheath for one of these knives. I've got quite a few sheaths to make, but we'll go ahead and do this one, and I'll try to film as much of it as I can and explain to you how I make a sheath. So I am not a sheath making expert. I've made hundreds of them, but it doesn't make me an expert. All right, so to give you guys a little backstory, when I made my first leather knife sheath, there wasn't any internet around. And so I went down to my local library and I hunted around for leather working books and didn't have much success. So I had to kind of guess on a lot of it. And subsequently I found a saddle maker in the next town over that did very phenomenal leather work. And I hired him to make sheaths for my knives. But his prices kept going up and up and up and up. And I think the first one he charged me $15, and then it got up to like $35, and I was like, this is really cutting into, I'm gonna have to, add that price onto the price of my knives, and I just didn't want to do that. So I started making my own sheaths. I had a drill press dedicated to just drilling holes in the leather. That's just something I started doing because, so I still have the tool, the original tool that I made. This thing's 40 years old now, and I made this out of a washer, and I just cut teeth in it, and I've got a fly in here, but let me find a piece of scrap here, piece of scrap leather. So I would just take this tool right here and run it along, and you can see what it did, and it would mark all where I wanted to drill my holes for my stitches. And I would saddle stitch by hand, with 2 needles and sail twine. I started using sail twine, and I still use sail twine to this day. Nothing else. I don't use nylon or any other kind of stuff because it's tried and tested. I have sheaths that I've used this stuff on that are over 30 years old. I still have, and they're still in great shape. It holds up very, very well. It's wax coated. It's coated with beeswax, and it really protects it. So yeah, so I would use this tool to mark it, and then drill the holes with my benchtop drill press I had. I had a floor model drill press, which I still have, and a benchtop. And the benchtop I used, and I would drill the holes with a very small drill bit and proceed to stitch them up. I didn't use rivets back then or anything like I do now. I use quite a few rivets, and I do some different stitching methods now. I made this edge beveler. I think this was the first one I made, and you can buy commercially made ones, such as this, but I made this one and I actually like it. I think it works better than the store-bought, although I haven't sharpened these yet. They probably could use a little touch-up sharpening to make them work a little bit better. But I made a couple of them. I made this one too out of a cheap, this was a cheap chisel of some kind, of wood carving chisel or something like that. And I made a edge beveler out of that with just a file and a little bit of time, and it works really well. And then you can buy, where is it? It's right here. Slickers, such as this one. This one I bought. Here's one I made years ago out of walnut, and I put a little aluminum shaft in it, and I would chuck this up in my drill press and run it, and then I just run the leather edges along that and slick up my edges on my leather using that in my drill press. But I have a handheld one here also. So yeah, then on down the road I started buying the proper tools, and such as this right here, and this is a stitch groover, but you can also use it as an edge beveler too. It has different bits that fit inside. Here you take this little Allen set screw loose, and you can put different bits in it. This one here is just I call it a groover. I'm not sure the proper name of it. It doesn't cut the leather, it just leaves a little, I'll do it on this scrap I was using before, but it has this fence right here, and you can adjust it real easy. You just loosen this up and you can slide it in and out, and that gets you a set distance off the edge of your leather all the way around, so it's nice and consistent. And so you use this wherever you want to put your stitching. And I'm not on a flat surface, so this isn't working great, but you get the idea anyway. Right here, you just run this right along the edge, and it marks it where you want to put it. Or there's also another tool that you can put in here, and it'll actually cut a little bit of leather out, just a little tiny narrow strip of leather it'll cut out so that your stitching is down in. But just putting a little ridge in it, that helps protect the stitching also. So I'll go ahead and get the camera repositioned, and we'll go ahead and make a sheath for this knife right here. Okay, everybody, I'm in the process of cutting leather out for some of these knife sheaths I need to make. So I already got the pieces cut out for this knife right here. And here's the pattern I used. I just hand drew out a pattern out of cardboard and paper for this knife. So here's all those pieces. So I'll assemble this one later. And show you how I do that later. So I'll put this one off to the side. And this is a real basic one. This will be the sheath for this knife right here, the Schrade Walden. And as you can see, it's just going to be a very plain, basic sheath for this one. Kind of more or less like the one it probably came with out of the factory back in the 50s. So I'll get my leather out here. Put my pattern down. And I try to do this where I don't waste very much leather. I try to waste as little as possible. The stuff's not cheap, you know. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and mark these where the belt loop goes. Do that first. Then I know where that is. Now, I can cut that off. And I've got the template for my second piece. And we'll just put it right up here on the edge. There we go. Now we'll just cut those out. This is a cutting edge I made out of a piece of aluminum angle iron. And I just put some splicing tape on the bottom of it. The rubber thick splicing tape, and that really helps it grip. So if I'm doing straight pieces like I did with this right here, I just mark it and I use this, and it's really easy to hold down, and then I just cut right along the edge of it, and it does a really good job. And that'll be my welt. My cut sleeve, I call it. And we'll make sure we have enough room in here for the knife. There's going to be plenty of room. Really doesn't need to be that wide, but that's all right. It'll give it plenty of room. Give me plenty of room to do the stitching. This is a real easy, very basic sheath. I do a lot of stuff by eye. I measure sometimes, but a lot of stuff I do, I just do it by eye. I'm sure there's better ways to do this, but this is how I do it. It's better to go this way halfway, flip it over and go this way, because otherwise that happens. And I should know better, but I can fix that. I'll fix that boo-boo there, like this. There, that fixed it. All right, now I'll take my edge beveler. And I'll start right here where it ends.
And there's my stitching groover. That'll mark where my stitching will go. You know what I think I'm going to do on this sheath here to fancy it up a little bit? I'm going to dampen that up a little bit. So I have a lot of these stamps. I have, like, there's an anchor, there's a sun, there's an eagle. I think I'm going to put an eagle on this one. Now there's a tool, here it is right here, that you use for these, where it fits in there and then you can hammer it. I don't like to use it. I'll use it sometimes, but I found that if I squeeze this in my vise, put it where I want it, and I put it on a board, and then I press it with my vise, just make sure it's right way up, centered where you want it. Yeah, I think something like that right there. All right, let's see how we did. Yeah, that's nice. Went a little bit too much. I got some of the frame, but that's all right. It came out pretty nice. Pretty nice eagle. The Schrade Walden sheath is going to have an eagle on it. Okay, time to glue this thing up. I'm going to use this stuff here, the Leathercraft flexible stuff. Not the prettiest job. And then while it's still wet, you're supposed to clamp it up. Put pressure on it. Okay, we'll let that dry. Okay, I think this glue is probably dry enough for me to take these clamps off. Yeah, it's not completely 100% dry. Now, like I said, this one is really, really basic. If I was to put a retaining strap on this sheath, which I could still add one if I wanted, I just punch a hole in right here, you know, cut a strip wider than this, you know, rivet it on there, put a snap on it. Real simple, but I'm not even going to bother on this. Yeah, I don't think I'm even going to bother with that this time. I can always add one later. So what I'll do now is I'll get all these edges all nice and smooth, sanded, and get them all evened up. Okay, I got the edges all nice and flush. Sanded them with 120 and then 400. going to use some of this dark brown leather dye. And we'll see what it looks like. Okay, that's how we're looking so far. Whoops, sorry guys, I thought I had the camera going that whole time. What I just did is I used my homemade edge beveler, this one right here, I made out of a screwdriver. I've got some store-bought ones here, these guys, but they take off such a small, tiny amount. I like mine takes off quite a bit more leather off the edges. So I did that, and then I put some more dye on it. That's all I've done. What I'm going to do is put some, I'm going to put some reinforcing rivets. These things right here. I just have to pick out which color I want to use. But I can get the holes punched first. And this little kit comes with a little hole punch, the anvil, and the setter. So I'm going to put a rivet right in the middle, right about there. And this is some thick leather. This leather is a lot thicker than what this knife came out of the factory with. Okay, I've got my holes for my rivets. These are upholstery needles. This is waxed sail twine I'm using. Yeah, and drilling the holes really helps to get these needles through. The first time ever I'm recording myself stitching a leather sheath. If I didn't have a rivet here at the top, I would double stitch it to start. I'd run through it twice. But because I have the rivets, whenever I have the rivets, I don't do that. So I always start, I put the first stitch in through the front, because that's the side you see, so that stitch is nice and straight. And then when I get it through, I take my other needle and I pull this taut and I slide the needle right in so that it's not poking through the middle of the strands of the sail twine. Sometimes I can get them through with my fingers, sometimes I have to grab my pliers to give me a little bit of help. This kind of work is really hard on my hands. And I'll be paying for it later on this afternoon. So there at the end we'll have a little double stitch right there, just to put everything on the back side. And then this is how I do it. I know there's a bunch of different ways. This stuff does not melt like nylon would, sail twine. So I pull it through like that, and I put it through, and then you got a half hitch there locked onto it, and then I just trim it off and do that. And this you could probably cut off, it's going through, but I tie it on the previous stitch. Like this, through. And that's how I lock it off. And it's got the wax in it, so it kind of flattens. And there we have it. Let me get this thing, I'll hit it with my hair dryer and get that dye dried a little bit better, and then we'll put some of my conditioner on it, slick it up a little bit. All right, food grade beeswax and mineral oil. That's all this is. I just realized the air conditioners are running in the background. Hopefully that's not too annoying for you. I like to get it real heavy down in those thread holes. Kind of help waterproof keep the moisture out of the stitching holes where it can get trapped. I'm gonna have to pick up some more brown. I'm kind of getting low. This is an edge burnisher. Call this a slicker, an edge burnisher. You use this on the edges to shine it up. Well, that's one way to make a very basic sheath. Fits in there nicely. Now I'll show you where I screwed up. The rivets, they're all mangled because this was so thick. These 3 layers were so thick, my rivets weren't long enough. So I ended up having to squeeze it in my vise to get those rivets set. And that's what caused the heads to be deformed on them. So I did the other one the same way, even though the rivet was long enough on this side. I just did it to match. I mangled. They look kind of crinkled looking. I didn't get my eagle perfectly centered because I just did it by eye, and I did it real fast for the video. But overall, I'm happy with it. It has a sheath now. So, a hand-stitched leather sheath that's a lot thicker than I'm sure the factory sheath was that the knife came with originally. No retaining strap, like I said, but you could always add one of those on real easy. Okay. And so there it is right there. There's our sheath we made today. Like I said, it's flawed because of my rivet heads are all smashed and stuff like that. Didn't come out perfectly, but I'm no expert. But I have a knife that has a sheath now. So, and I won't be, this is a high carbon steel, so I won't be keeping it stored in the sheath, but I do have a sheath to put it in so that when the day comes, I go to sell this knife or somebody else goes to sell this knife, it'll have a sheath to go with it. So, and I don't know if it's showing up on camera, but I like that kind of two-tone where I didn't
dye it as heavy in the middle as I did around the edges. So it gives it kind of a little two-tone brown finish to it. Anyway, that's it. Let me know down in the comments what you think. You can give me all the tips you want. Not to say that they're going to do me any good, because I'm not going to go out and buy a bunch of expensive equipment at this point. I've been doing it too long. I get by with what I have, and the methods that I use seem to work fine for me. But if you know any shortcuts, I'd love to hear those. You know, I'm all about shortcuts. Something that can save on my hands. I used to have a heavy-duty sewing machine, a walking foot industrial sewing machine. I think it had like a 2 horsepower motor on it or something crazy. But I sold that years ago. I didn't use it. I bought it for stitching canvas tops for boats and that kind of thing, bimini tops and canvas tops for boats. But since then, I just have a small white sewing machine, and it does a fine job on that, you know, so I don't need anything that heavy duty. That was an expensive machine I had. I never used it for leather, but I'm sure it would have sewed leather really good. But I don't have room for one now, and it's not in my budget to go out and buy one. So with that being said, so I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you're not a subscriber, I appreciate you consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps me out. I'm really hoping to hit 5,000 subscribers by the time I've been doing this for a year, which is coming up in a couple of months. So, and I apologize for the air conditioning noise in the background. It's hot today, and I have to have the air conditioner going, so it's that time of year again, folks. So anyway, this is Dave. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.